What factored into your decision to take a new job that would relocate your family?
My first job out of graduate school was at McKinsey. And when I got hired, McKinsey was hiring a lot of PhD students, people with non-traditional McKinsey backgrounds, so not MBAs from Harvard, right? They were hiring PhDs from Duke, for example. But I mean, as an example, one of my classmates in McKinsey, they called it a class, right? One of my classmates in that consulting year was this woman who had a PhD in art history, like very non-traditional, right? So when I got hired, the explicit conversation that I had with the recruiter was, look, we know that people who had been academics take a little while to transition to a business role, right, to a consulting role. Typically 3 years as opposed to 2 for an MBA, right? It's typically 3 years to get to an engagement manager level as opposed to 2 years. And in about the middle of my first year, maybe towards the end of the first year, the dotcom blow up happened in 2000, maybe 1999. All of a sudden, all the work dried up, and all of us people with non-traditional backgrounds who weren't quite as sophisticated as the MBA folks, all kind of looked at each other, going like, "How come we're not working?" So there was a mass exodus, right? I mean, a forced exodus, right? I had some anger about it, and my anger was around like, "Look, guys, I was transitioning from an academic to a very different type of job, and the expectation was that you were going to give me 3 years of runway." So I lost my job. And I really didn't have prospects for another job because the whole economy was, a bit of a recession, and I hadn't completed that transition over from being an academic to a business person. I was kind of right in the middle of it, and probably still thought of myself a little bit as an academic. So what that did for me was it scarred me a bit. It scarred me in a way that meant, the lesson I took away from that was, oh crap, I better always have an out, right? Because the company can lay me off at will, right? Most companies, right? Like they could fire me at any time, and because I did not have a backup plan, it meant that I was unemployed for 8 months, a little less than that. Let's call it 6 months. I was prepping for my wedding for 2, so let's call it 6 months. So I was unemployed for 6 months. It was very, very difficult for me to find another job, and candidly, I'm very grateful for my next employer because they kind of let me get back on my feet. But I was really worried there for a while. It was really touch and go. So the thing that I had been always looking, every job I had ever had up till now, I had always made sure that I was still talking to recruiters, and that I had options, right? And a lot of this is because of the McKinsey experience. What I was looking for was a place where, like, I feel like I've worked through it, right? I'm 10 years into my career. I think I have enough of a track record to not have to be. I don't need to have that concern anymore, right? It's kind of like adolescence, right? I can let go of childish things.
That's right.
I can let go of that insecurity, and I have. So one thing I was looking for was a place that I could let go of the insecurity, and contribute like hell, right? So it's a long-winded answer for really contribute,
Sure.
contribute, and let go of the insecurity. And in my mind, we've really committed to Atlanta. I said to my boss, like, not only is the family moving down here, but like the kids are going to school here, and I'm going to buy an Atlanta car. I'm going to buy, as I said to you, I'm going to buy a car with a convertible. I'm going to buy a car with no roof, so we can drive it around the Atlanta spring and fall, and have some fun. But that scarring, like that's real. I mean, I think you underestimate when you're hiring manager the effect of the previous experiences had. Like for me to hold on to that for 10 years, I think wasn't necessarily healthy. Certainly, I think people look at my resume and go like, wow, he's been at, I think it's 6 jobs in 10 years, maybe 7. And every job was progressive, right? Every job was more responsibility or a very different feel, right? A different experience. So I felt good about the career path, but this is the first time where I'm like, you know what? I think you look at my LinkedIn profile. You can look at my LinkedIn profile. If you look at my LinkedIn profile, there's nothing for now at Turner. It is just, one line, Ken Rona, audience insights, added sales partnerships. That's it.